My name is Clarissa Vance, and I've learned the power of staying quiet. It was a warm Sunday evening when my sister threw her engagement dinner at our parents' house. Everyone showed up. Uncles, cousins, neighbors who still acted like they knew how my life turned out. The dining room buzzed with laughter, the table packed, wine flowing freely. And yet I could feel it. Those glances, subtle and sharp, as if I were the one puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. "You still driving?" "That little gray car?" someone asked loudly, and a few chuckles followed. My sister shot me a look full of fake concern. "She's just practical," she said sweetly. "Clarissa's always been good at stretching a dollar." Her fiancé laughed politely, not catching the edge beneath the words, but I did. Everyone did. I just smiled and took a sip of my water. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. And then, as the plates were being cleared, her fiancé leaned over, casual as ever. "Hey, Clarissa, this is random, but did you have anything to do with a jet I saw in St. Bart's last weekend?" Said something like, "Vance Capital" on the side. The room froze. Forks paused midair. I smiled faintly and said, "Yeah, that's me." It had always been like this. Every family gathering was the same. Warm laughter laced with cold judgment. Questions that weren't really questions. Comments pretending to be concern. I was the one who never fit. The daughter who never married. Never moved back, never brought a date, never posted baby bump photos or beach selfies on Facebook. At first, I tried. I really tried. I sent gifts, remembered birthdays, paid for dinner more than once, thinking maybe that would change things. But it only made them worse. One year, I offered to help with my niece's school tuition. My sister told everyone I was trying to buy her love. After that, I stopped trying. I left home at 22 and moved to Seattle. They called it running away. I called it finally breathing. The early years were rough. I bounced between jobs, rented a basement room with no windows, lived off rice and eggs. I started building a simple tool for independent couriers to manage deliveries. It didn't even have a name. I coded at night, worked support during the day, burned out a few times. But 3 years later, a logistics firm in Singapore found the software, asked if I'd considered scaling it. I hadn't, but I did. With help and a lot of caffeine, I grew the company. A seed round came, then Series A. By 35, I had a team, a headquarters, international contracts, and a sale agreement with an NDA that paid me more than my parents could imagine. I kept the old car. I liked how it kept things quiet, but to my family, none of that mattered. They didn't see what I built. They only saw what I didn't say. I didn't flaunt wealth. I didn't explain where I flew for holidays, I didn't wear designer brands, and so they made up stories to fill in the silence. "She's always been independent," my mother would say with a tight-lipped smile. "Never wanted a family." "Your sister turned out normal, at least," my aunt once whispered during Thanksgiving. At first, those words stung. Later, they amused me. And eventually, they became background noise. Static I could tune out. They thought I was broke because I didn't show off, because I didn't chase their approval, because I wasn't desperate for a seat at their shallow table. Still, I showed up that night. Not for them, but for me. I had my reasons. Watching their expressions freeze when the jet came up, that wasn't planned. But I won't lie. It was satisfying. There was a time I thought I could earn my way back into their good graces. That love, at least in families, could be negotiated. That if I worked hard enough, gave enough, proved myself enough, they'd finally see me. When I was 28, my appendix ruptured and turned septic. I was in the hospital for weeks. Not a single call, no card, nothing. A roommate I barely knew brought me soup and helped me wash my hair. My own mother never checked in. Maybe she didn't know. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. That was the last time I expected anything from them. I stopped sending holiday texts, stopped calling on birthdays. I faded out quietly. So quietly, I doubt they even noticed. Or maybe they did and just didn't care enough to speak up. Emotionally, I was gone, but I never fully disappeared. I still showed up for major events, brought thoughtful gifts, played the role of eccentric older sister. It was easier than explaining why I kept my distance, and truthfully, some small part of me still hoped. Hoped that someday someone would ask what I was working on without judgment. That they'd see me, not as a failure, not as a flake, but as someone who carved her own way and made it. That day never came. I never told them when my business took off. Not when I hired my first employee. Not when we passed 2 million design. Recurring revenue. Not even when I signed the acquisition deal that let me retire twice over. What would have been the point? They wouldn't have believed me. Or worse, they'd twist it. My mom would have said I was showing off. My sister would have told everyone I was lying. So I kept my victories private. And with that money, I started something new. I didn't name the company after myself on purpose. I wanted something lasting. Something that could grow, employ others, leave a mark. I kept out of the spotlight. Flew coach even when I could buy the plane. My team knew who I was. My partners respected me. That was enough. But it wasn't just the money that changed. It was me. I stopped needing to prove my value. The ache of being excluded from the family circle faded. I'd built my own table, piece by piece, quietly and on my own terms. The irony wasn't lost on me, that after years of making myself small to avoid their judgment, the truth would land. In their laps over dessert. And not even by my doing, but from the man my sister was about to marry, and I knew, just knew, that she would hate that. Because in her world, there was only space for one success story. She'd claimed that title early, with the ring, the honeymoon plans, the matching luggage she showcased on Instagram like a prize. I didn't come to sabotage anything. I really didn't. But when life drops a moment like that in your lap, you don't blink. You don't deflect. You hold your glass steady, smile politely, and let the truth gleam on the table, undeniable, unbothered. The whole evening had been staged to be flawless. String lights twinkled across the backyard fence. Navy linens, gold flatware, my sister's version of classy. A private chef orchestrated the courses. Servers in black moved like shadows, and soft jazz floated from hidden speakers. She had curated every second. I arrived 20 minutes late, not to make a statement, just late enough to dodge the tight smiles and shallow small talk. I parked down the block, walked the last stretch in unbranded heels, and slipped in through the yaw side gate like someone used to being underestimated. Mom met me at the patio doors, voice sticky sweet. "Clarissa, we weren't sure you'd come," she said, which was code for, "We were hoping you wouldn't." My sister floated over seconds later, dressed like a Pinterest board come to life. Champagne silk, flawless curls, and that gleam in her eye she always saved just for me. "You look cozy," she said, scanning my simple black sheath dress. "You've always had such simple taste. Simple, practical, frugal." Every word she used to describe me was just another way to say small. I smiled. "Good to see you too." The table buzzed with updates. Praise for my niece's PR internship, a toast for my cousin's boyfriends. Promotion at Chase. I nodded when people looked my way, but no one asked what I'd been doing. No one ever did. They'd written my narrative long ago. The quirky one, the outlier, the one who chose freedom because clearly she couldn't find a husband. I sipped my water and let them talk around me. Sometimes silence was easier than pushing back. By the third course, the jabs started. Subtle but predictable. Uncle Jeff leaned in, grinning. "Still driving that old Honda? I swear it's older than your dad's lawnmower." Laughter. Not cruel, just comfortable in its condescension. Someone added, "Remember her DIY Christmas gifts? Who makes soap from scratch?" She stayed so grounded. My sister added with a theatrical sigh. "Never let the pressure of success get to her." She turned to her fiancé, eyes gleaming. "She's never cared much about appearances." She was trying to impress him by making me small, and he was playing along until he wasn't. He tilted his head toward me. "Wait, Clarissa Vance?" His brow creased. As in, Vance Capital? My sister froze, confused. What? We saw your name on a jet last weekend, he said. We were in St. Bart's touring honeymoon spots, and there was a Gulfstream G600 on the tarmac. The concierge said the owner was based in Seattle. I thought it was just coincidence. The shift in the air was instant. Forks hovered. Glasses paused mid-sip. All eyes turned toward me. I met his gaze, calm and steady. That's mine. A beat. Then another. My cousin's mouth dropped open. My mother narrowed her eyes, recalculating. My sister paled. Actually paled. Her fiancé blinked, lips parting, trying to say more and failing. Finally, wait. You're the one who closed that deal with Eastern Freight? That merger was huge. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The truth was louder than any speech I could give. My sister laughed, thin and nervous. She's kidding, then softer. Right? I stood slowly, folded my napkin, placed it on my plate. Actually, I've got an early flight tomorrow. I should head out. But dessert's not even out yet, my mother blurted too quickly. I know. As I walked the length of the table, I could feel their eyes. All those relatives who never asked, never listened, now desperate to fit me into a new frame. But I wasn't there to help them make sense of me. I reached the gate, and behind me I heard someone whisper, stunned. She has a jet. No one followed. I didn't look back. The walk to my car felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the quiet trailing behind me like smoke. Maybe it was the weight I'd just put down for good. I got in, closed the door, hands resting on the wheel, eyes forward. The house behind me still glowed with porch lights. Inside, my sister was probably scrambling to rewrite the story, to find some way to explain it all. Maybe she'd say I hit the lottery. Maybe I was just a silent investor. Maybe. It was all blown out of proportion, anything to keep herself as the star of the family tale. But this time the story had shifted, and for once, she wasn't the one holding the pen. The truth was, I didn't care if they believed it. I wasn't seeking validation. I didn't need their applause. But it hit differently. Not because I said it, but because it came from someone they respected, someone they were still trying to impress. That's what made it real in a way I never could. For the first time, they had to see me as I was, not the version they had decided I'd always be. I hadn't orchestrated the moment. I didn't need it. But it came anyway, like the tide. Steady, inevitable, undeniable. I drove home with the windows down, the night air cool against my skin. There was a kind of peace in not needing to explain yourself, in finally outgrowing a room you were never meant to fit into. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was from my sister's fiancé. Sorry if that was awkward tonight. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. Just respect what you've built. A lot. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. Thanks. I'm used to awkward. That was just clarity. He read it instantly, sent a thumbs up. That was enough. Later, lying in bed, the ceiling above me felt like a blank page. But the memories came anyway, uninvited. I thought of being 12, sitting on the back porch steps while my sister opened birthday gifts inside. A party I wasn't allowed to attend. It was for her friends only. I'd helped Mom bake the cake, but no one saved me a slice. I thought of prom night, watching through the window as my cousin posed for pictures in the front yard, laughing with relatives. No one had asked if I had a dress. I didn't. No one had even thought to ask. I thought of my father, now long gone, who used to ruffle my hair and say, "She's the practical one. The other one's the pretty one." Small words, small cuts. Over years, they become wounds that bleed from places no one sees. The next morning, I got a text from my mother. "Why didn't you ever tell us about your business?" I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because that question wasn't about curiosity. It was about control. It was an attempt to rewrite the past, to pretend they hadn't dismissed me for so long. My silence was the only honest reply. By noon, a cousin I hadn't heard from in over a year messaged me about coffee and catching up. Then another. Suddenly, I was interesting. Suddenly, I had value. But I'd waited too long for those invitations, and now they meant nothing. They weren't about knowing me. They were about proximity to a story that had changed. I declined each one, kindly. No bitterness, just clarity. 2 days later, my assistant confirmed the jet in St. Bart's had been prepped for its next charter. Booked a last-minute seat, not because I needed to escape, but because I'd earned the right to leave things behind. In the cabin, glass of mineral water in hand, I watched the sun break across the ocean, clean and golden. The light hit the wing just right, slicing through the clouds, and I smiled. Not because I was flying private, but because I was flying free. Not everything needs to be a confrontation. Sometimes the most powerful move is not to explain, to walk off the stage mid-performance and leave the audience with silence. For years, I believed my worth was something I had to prove. That if I just explained myself clearly enough, if I worked hard enough, they would see me. But that's not closure. Closure isn't loud. Sometimes it's the quiet hum of an airplane engine carrying you far from the people who never saw you in the first place. It's the sound of a door clicking shut, not slammed, not dramatic, just final. Clean. My family still talks. I know they do. They retell the story, reframe the narrative. I've become a mystery, maybe even a villain. Maybe she changed. Maybe she got cold. Maybe she forgot where she came from. Let them. Because I no longer live in their version of me. I've outgrown it. I don't need to be understood by people who were never curious. I don't need applause from a table I was never truly invited to sit at. I don't need someone to whisper, "We were wrong about you." I already know they were. What I needed, what I spent so long chasing, was peace. And I found it the moment I stopped trying to shrink myself into something they could recognize. They'll keep speculating. They'll keep talking. But I don't have to answer. I live in rooms they'll never enter. I build things they'll never see. I make choices without the echo of their judgment. And that, in its own quiet, unwavering way, is power. Sometimes the most radical act of healing isn't revenge. It's not confrontation. It's choosing to live fully, without permission, letting them sit with what they missed. I didn't walk into that dinner to prove anything, but they saw it anyway. Not because I demanded it, because truth doesn't need a spotlight. It only needs a moment. And when it arrives, you don't flinch. You don't perform, you stand still, you breathe, and you let the silence say everything.